Remember Dolly Doctor in the magazine? Well, if you are a woman more than 20 years old, you probably spent hours reading the magazine's sealed sections and all the advice about sex, what goes where and what's normal. But Dolly has gone to the big newsagent in the sky. And right at the moment, teenage girls are really facing new challenges around sex, boys and their bodies, and they're challenges their mums certainly didn't face. Roy Murray has filled the gap by writing a guide to help girls navigate this really tricky subject. And she joins us now. It's nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, everyone.
A bit of a broad question to begin with. I mean, you say that kids are exposed to a lot of myths about sex these days. Like what?
There's so much information online, and kids will actually talk to their friends, go online and talk to teachers before they'll talk to their parents. So you name it, it's out there.
The laws around kids sexting changed last year because it's now considered normal. Tell me this isn't so. How can it be normal and how can it be safe?
I would honestly say that normal isn't a term I'd love to use. I think common is definitely something we can say, because the current data is showing that over 25% of teens are actually sexting. So the reality is it's a conversation that parents need to have with their kids, whether they want to or not. You know, the good news is that there's lots of ways to have these conversations though, so it's not all over Red Rover for parents just yet.
So I guess the fact is that sexting is now so commonplace that I guess just say no isn't good enough. Can we tell people just to not do it, or are we now at the point where we have to say, all right, if you're going to sext, this is how you do it?
Yeah, I think it's really important to continue to explain to teenagers and kids, you know, the dangers that are with it. The moment you send someone a photo, of course, it's in their hands. And even if they don't leak it, it's really easy for iCloud accidents to happen and it can end up out there. So there's no really safe way to do it. And it's really important that, you know, teenagers really get to understand. But you're absolutely right, Joe. The whole just say no thing tends to actually push it underground. With the teenagers that I work with, the moment they get told off, the moment they get their phone confiscated, they're off setting up a fake Snapchat ID or a fake Instagram ID and just not telling their parents. So it's always better to have those lines of communication open.
Speaking of lines of communication, Ro, I think you've just got something rustling up against your microphone there.
Yeah, we're having a few audio problems there.
Get rid of it. That should solve the problem. There you go.
All right, terrific.
Now, Ro, I want to talk about the recent research, but question not on notice. Do those nose rings hurt?
They're about on par with getting your ears pierced, so they're not too bad at all.
Oh, even every day you don't sort of go to scratch your nose and...
No.
Okay, good. Let's get back to
I don't notice them.
the serious topic. Now, recent research says that those teenage girls, as you were discussing, feel really powerless to sort of say no when a boy sends a naked picture. So, you know, they're worried they'll get dumped, a boy will get angry. So what do you suggest they do when they receive these images?
It's a really, really complex issue because it feeds into so many things. Part of it is self-esteem, and any parent knows that, you know, bolstering your teenage girl's self-esteem is no easy trick. So that's a really important part of it. If they're feeling strong enough in themselves to say no, even to a boy they really like, that's a really important thing. But also parents of teen boys, have these talks to them, tell them what is bullying and what's not. It's because they're a big part of it as well. And it goes for both boys and girls. Some boys are being pressured, some girls are being pressured, and teenagers honestly need to be a bit kinder to each other online than they often are.
I heard a great quote on the internet over the weekend that learning sex from porn is like learning how to drive by watching The Fast and the Furious.
Yes.
So with so much access and free access to porn these days, kids' expectations of sex is really changing for boys and for girls. How do we have that conversation with them to make them realise that this is actually not normal and it can be done in a loving way?
Yeah, it's it's a great series of small conversations that parents can have with teens. I always say with, any kind of education, whether it's sex education or body education or maths homework, lots of small, non-weird, non-confronting, conversations are a much better way to be going about it than having big sit-down chats. And, the analogy about, the driving in the Fast and Furious, that it's a movie. With the teens that I work with, they often do go, well, of course I know it's just entertainment, but that's a part of their immaturity. They still do have that cognitive dissonance that when it comes down to it, they still do buy into the porn thing. I mean, Pornhub, which is one of the world's biggest free tube channels, has actually set up, it's pretty good actually, but a sex education channel because it acknowledges and recognises that so many teens are going to them for advice. They're like, whoa, no, stay away from that stuff, but if you hang out over here, we can actually help do something about it.
Wow. I think the time has come for an online dolly doctor to make a return, because the fact is just as many boys read that as girls when it was around, because that's how they found out about things as well.
Oh, absolutely. I love Dolly Doctor. It's such a shame that it's not around now.
I think it's the answer.
What are the most common questions that you do get from teenage girls and or boys?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, most of the questions I get from both of them are the really stock standard things that parents have been dealing with for generations. Their body changes, periods, how to deal with, boyfriends and girlfriends, that kind of thing. So the main thing is it still hasn't really changed. They've still got lots of normal, natural questions as their bodies are changing and their relationships evolve. But there are definitely issues around bullying, and they are, feeling that the online bullying is moving into their sort of slightly sexier side of life, which, online bullying is obviously such a huge problem, and it is leaking into all facets, and that's something that is new. And parents now, they're the first generation who have ever had to deal with this. So it's a really, really tricky one. They can't look to their own experiences as teenagers because it looked completely different. Snapchat wasn't even a thing 7 or 8 years ago. So, it's a really tough space right now for parents.
Well, Rose's book is called For Fox's Sake. You've got to say that slowly. Everything a fox needs to know about sex. Ro Murray, you are fantastic.
Yeah,
We've got to get you back on the show. Thanks for breaking it down for us.